Her smile was just a little too wide, her tan far too even, and her eyes, something flickered in them that made my heart tighten. On the surface, it looked like a perfectly ordinary return from vacation. Hugs, kisses, kids holding welcome signs, a passionate evening filled with whispers. But behind that flawless facade, something didn't add up. A single, barely noticeable inconsistency, and suddenly you can't breathe, can't sleep, can't forget. And when the truth begins to seep through the smallest of details, the lack of a tan line where a ring once was, a stranger's name in her messages, laughter that rings just a little too brightly, there's no turning back. Because you realize the way back no longer exists. You haven't just lost trust. You found yourself at the heart of a carefully concealed betrayal. And now you have more than just proof. You have a plan. Cold, precise, devastating. And the worst part? You still love the one who broke you. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watch this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. We stood in tense anticipation near the baggage claim, our eyes darting among the travelers. My brother-in-law, Benjamin, waited with me, flanked by his daughters, 9-year-old Daphne and Lily, who was 7. My own children, Daniel, 12, and Sophie, also 9, hovered excitedly nearby. The kids proudly held a massive sign above their heads. "Welcome home, mommies." It had been a full 2 weeks since my wife Melanie and her sister Hannah had flown off to bask in the warmth of Belize. Escaping Minnesota's brutal January chill had almost become a family ritual, and this getaway offered the sisters a chance to soak up the sun and unwind. After a while, the first wave of arriving passengers began to file out. When the children finally glimpsed their mothers, they burst out in joyous shouts. Melanie and Hannah, glowing from their tropical retreat, both looked happier than ever, their faces bright and their skin bronzed by the sun. Melanie swept Daniel and Sophie into her arms, covering them with affectionate hugs and kisses. Then, turning to me, she greeted me with a long, lingering kiss that spoke volumes. I wrapped my arms around her, not wanting the moment to end. "I missed you every minute," I murmured softly. Melanie leaned in, her tone teasing yet full of warmth. "Just wait until tonight. I'll make sure you know how much I missed you too." She kept that promise later that evening. After 15 years together, Melanie knew me inside and out, and she understood exactly how much tan lines drove me crazy. With the kids asleep, we slipped away to our room. "Go lie down and wait for me," she whispered, a playful glint in her eye as she disappeared into the bathroom. Soon enough, I found myself under the covers, anticipation building. When Melanie finally returned, she wore nothing but a tiny thong bikini. Her face, always her most striking feature, radiated happiness, her smile wide and genuine. Still, Melanie often struggled with self-doubt. She'd talk about being too petite or lacking curves, or fret about her body's changes after pregnancy. Though her breasts had filled out over the years, she never seemed satisfied. But as she struck a pose at the edge of the bed, every line and curve seemed flawless to me, her golden tan accentuating her beauty. Slowly, she slid her thong down, revealing a sharp contrast between her tanned skin and the untouched pale areas. Subtle lines marked where the bikini had shielded her from the sun. The sight made my heart race. Then, with a gentle motion, she undid her bikini top and let it fall away, exposing her soft, pale breasts. I couldn't hold back any longer. Sitting up, I reached for her, showering her with kisses as my hands explored her warm, sun-kissed skin. My touch sent shivers through her, and soon we lost ourselves in one another, my longing for her overwhelming. Several times I found myself nuzzling into her, breathing in the scent I'd missed so much. "It's so good to be home," she breathed, her voice trembling with emotion. I missed you too. We spent most of that night reconnecting, holding each other close. A few days passed, and I found Melanie scrubbing the bathroom tub. I paused in the hallway, captivated by the sway of her hips as she worked. She must have sensed my gaze because she glanced over her shoulder, grinning. "What's got you staring?" she teased. I told her the truth. I was fantasizing about what I'd do if she wasn't wearing those pants and the house was quiet. She laughed and called me a pervert, obviously entertained. She slipped off her gloves, tossing them aside, then walked over with a sultry swagger. Pressing up against me, she whispered, "That's what you call temptation." Usually I would have responded in kind, but an unexpected feeling of unease crept over me. Something wasn't right, though I couldn't pinpoint what it was. Melanie looked a little confused by my lack of response. "Typical," she joked. "All talk, no follow-through." She gave a playful shake of her hips before turning back to her cleaning. It was then that a minute detail caught my attention. So small, but enough to send a chill through me. I froze, made a quick excuse about needing something in the garage, and slipped out, unsure if she even heard. Alone at my workbench, I tried to reason with the unsettling thought gnawing at me. Had Melanie been unfaithful while away? She was charming, and I'd always known that other men noticed her. The thing I'd noticed seemed to make sense only if something had happened on her trip. The fear gripped me. If I found out she'd betrayed me, I knew I couldn't stay. The pain of even considering it, especially for the sake of our children, was almost unbearable. What could have made her do this to us? Had I somehow fallen short as a partner? These questions ran through my mind over and over, even though I had nothing concrete, just a gut feeling that something had changed. But how could I ever know for sure? If anything had happened, it was far away, in another country. Directly confronting her seemed pointless. She would only deny it. I considered asking Hannah, but both sisters were stubborn to the core, so that would get me nowhere either. Growing up, I'd always been aware of how close sisters could be. If one of them did something questionable, the other was rarely far behind. These suspicions weighed on me, so I knew I needed to talk things over with Benjamin. Before I could do so, though, Melanie called out for me, prompting me to head back inside the house. "Why have you been out in the garage all this time?" Melanie asked, her tone tinged with concern. "You've been out there for more than 2 hours. You'll get sick." I brushed off her worry with a casual, "Just tidying up out there," and left it at that. But a new thought was already forming in my mind. I had no desire to spend the night in the same room as her. On top of that, I'd been fighting off a cold all day and honestly needed the rest. I opted to crash on the couch instead. Melanie clearly wasn't thrilled about it. "Fine," she relented. "I'll make you some chamomile tea before bed. Maybe that'll help." After Melanie headed to bed, I was left alone, wrestling with an endless barrage of thoughts. What had motivated her to do this? What choices did I really have? Should I go straight to Benjamin and ask if he could confirm anything about Hannah? Suddenly, I realized there might be a concrete way to learn the truth about Melanie's fidelity. She had recently become fixated on maintaining constant contact with her friends. Melanie's Facebook network was enormous, easily 600 or 700 people. Her Yahoo address book was even larger. If she had kept in touch with someone from Belize, I was sure there would be an email trail. Still, knowing that we both had access to each other's passwords, she might have used a different email. As I drifted off, an idea started to come together. The next morning, I was exhausted and struggled to keep my mind on work. That day, I made an appointment to meet a divorce lawyer on Friday and contacted Benjamin to invite him out to lunch. He sounded surprised but agreed. When we met, I laid everything out for him. At first, Benjamin chuckled and tried to make light of it, but when he saw how serious I was, he promised to see if Hannah was guilty of the same thing. Claiming I was sick, I left work early and arrived home by mid-afternoon. Right away, I installed a keystroke logger on our computer. It took a week before anything surfaced. Melanie eventually logged into a separate email account using the username BeachDreams1975. Her password was a mashup of our children's names and their birth years, Shedav92. Just days after coming back from Belize, she and Brian were in constant email contact. The exchanges between Melanie and Hannah left no doubt about what had happened. As it turned out, Hannah had also slept with a man named Samuel. I forwarded all of Melanie's messages to my own email address and erased any traces of the keystroke logger. Afterward, I sent Benjamin a collection of these emails. That's how the truth emerged. The affair had begun almost immediately during the trip to Belize, and both women had swapped partners more than once. They were already arranging another meetup in Chicago the following month. The cover story was shopping, while Benjamin and I, supposedly attending a Blackhawks game, provided the alibi. A quick look at both Melanie's and Hannah's Facebook profiles showed two recent friends, Brian Spencer and Samuel Rhodes, both married and living in Illinois. The proof was undeniable. I finally had all the leverage I needed. But what came next wouldn't be simple. Benjamin was still struggling to accept reality. He kept everything to himself, never confronting Hannah or admitting to himself that she might have cheated. I understood. Melanie's caring attitude toward me and the kids made it hard to believe she would ever risk our family. Her affection sometimes made me second-guess everything, which helped preserve a sense of normalcy between us, even in our most intimate moments. One afternoon, I called Benjamin at his office. "Hey, Benjamin, it's James. Can you check your personal email from work?" "Yeah, sure," he replied. "I just sent you something important. Go through all of it and then call me back." About 30 minutes later, Benjamin called again, his voice shaking with anger. "I'm finished. I can't take this. I would have done anything for her. I loved her," he vented. "Take a minute, Benjamin," I said softly. "We need to think things through. I could really use your help right now. Let's keep this between us for the moment." "I don't know if I can manage that. I just feel like exploding," he confessed. "We'll figure this out, I promise. For now, just call home and leave a message saying you're working late." That evening, we met at a bar in the historic part of town to make a plan. Our first strategy session began. "What are our options for making them really pay for this?" I asked. Short of anything violent, obviously. Benjamin sat there in silence, anger etched across his face. "I want to embarrass them in front of everyone they care about," he finally said. "You know their dad, Thomas. He absolutely dotes on his daughters." Benjamin agreed. This was the route we'd take. Everyone's aware of this, obviously. Yet there's one thing he loathes even more than the IRS, and you know exactly what it is. Benjamin's mouth twisted into a sly smirk. "Unfaithful wives," he stated. Throughout Thomas's marriage, his ex-wife, the mother of Melanie and Hannah, had been secretly seeing other men, something Thomas only uncovered once their relationship was over. When their divorce was settled, she ended up with custody of the girls, took ownership of their home, locked in a generous alimony and child support agreement, and even managed to claim a large chunk of his business. To buy her out of the company, Thomas had to shoulder considerable debt. It took years of struggle to get his business back on solid ground. After finally selling it, Thomas was financially secure, but he lived alone. He still made time to visit his daughters and see his grandchildren whenever he could. I revealed my plan to Benjamin. We had just 2 weeks left to maintain our facade as dutiful husbands. "Just stick to my lead, Benjamin," I advised. "Come down with a few colds, rack up long hours at work, and make sure you're always too tired or sick for anything romantic." We'd put on a convincing performance about once a week for the sake of appearances. Soon, we'd be done with all of it. That night, as predicted, I got home much later than normal. Melanie was already in bed, so I pretended to have a splitting headache. My thoughts kept circling back to our plan for retribution, but eventually, exhaustion overtook me, and I fell asleep. Truthfully, I'd already started suspecting Melanie of being unfaithful, especially after she mentioned she and Hannah were planning a shopping trip to Chicago. I acted genuinely supportive of their idea, even suggesting they should stay in a nice hotel downtown. To really sell it, I made the hotel reservation myself with our shared credit card. The booking was made for Mr. and Miss Jarrett, double occupancy, since the sisters would be sharing a room. Melanie and Hannah were absolutely thrilled. Benjamin pitched in, offering to pay for the hotel too. He booked a room under Mr. and Miss Dalton, also set for double occupancy for Hannah and Melanie. We made sure each wife thought only one room had been arranged for the two of them. Of course, we both knew full well that neither woman intended to share a room, and we let them believe we were completely oblivious to their real plans. Their agenda was to take Friday off, catch an early flight to Chicago, and return late on Sunday. A few days later, I called Thomas Ramsey, Melanie's father, and proposed the idea of surprising the women in Chicago with the kids in tow, since the trip lined up with our 15th wedding anniversary. Thomas loved the suggestion. I asked him to reserve 3 rooms, and he agreed, thinking it would be a wonderful surprise. When it was time to drop Melanie and Hannah off at the airport, Benjamin and I were both seething inside. The two women acted like giddy teenagers off to meet secret boyfriends, laughing over nothing and bubbling with excitement. At the security checkpoint, we each kissed them goodbye on the cheek. Neither one seemed to notice that we never said, "I love you." Once we were on the road, I called our private investigator. "This is Jarrett," I said. "They'll be in Chicago soon. Are we ready?" Andrew Whitaker, our PI, assured me, "Yes, they'll be in rooms 201 and 203. All the surveillance equipment is in place. I'll have everything prepared for when you get here tomorrow." The next morning, we headed to the airport. During the flight, Thomas switched seats with my son Daniel and sat down beside me. "Look, son," he said quietly, "don't think I'm clueless. You and Benjamin look like you're on your way to a funeral. Tell me what's really happening." I came clean with Thomas and apologized for not telling him sooner. "I know how much you love your daughters," I said, "but you should know. They've been cheating, Thomas." He cut me off. "They're having affairs, aren't they?" I nodded. "Yes. They met a couple of men and spent 2 weeks with them in Belize. I've hired a private investigator to get all the evidence we'll need for divorce. As soon as we catch them in the act, we're filing." Thomas squeezed my shoulder reassuringly. "I'm truly sorry, son. I know how much this hurts. I always hoped my influence would outweigh their mother's, but I'm afraid her example left a deeper mark." Thomas's eyes grew misty. "I didn't think I could feel this kind of pain again," he murmured. He eventually composed himself and went back to his seat. When we landed in Chicago, Andrew Whitaker met us at the airport and handed envelopes to both Benjamin and me. Inside were incriminating photographs and a DVD with footage from the previous night. Andrew said a process server would be in touch soon, and his team was keeping watch on both rooms. His assistant would let us know when it was the right moment to confront them. The spouses of Spencer and Rhodes would be getting similar evidence packets by noon. Benjamin and I asked Thomas and Andrew to look after the kids for a while. We needed to see firsthand what our wives had been up to. My stomach twisted as I flipped through explicit photos of Melanie, including one of her with 2 men. The worst part, it was obvious they hadn't bothered with any protection. Benjamin and I immediately realized we'd need to get tested for STDs when we got back to Minneapolis. Andrew called his assistant to check on the hotel situation. The women and their companions had gone out for lunch, so for the time being, the coast was clear. Thomas went ahead and purchased 3 separate items. At the same time, Benjamin and I made our way to the reception desk to ask for additional key cards for rooms 201 and 203, which were both registered under our names. After confirming who we were, the receptionist provided us with the spare keys. We casually mentioned that our kids had arranged a surprise and asked the receptionist not to mention anything to our wives. Together, we all took the elevator up to the 3rd floor, where our rooms were located. Roughly an hour later, Andrew Whitaker called my phone. He let me know that everyone had returned from lunch and settled back into their rooms. He also noted that there had been a change in room pairings. Melanie was now with Rhodes, and Hannah had switched to being with Spencer. "I'm downstairs in the lobby, and the process server just walked in," he informed me. "I'll send him your way," I told Andrew, then hung up and sat upright on the bed. Turning to the kids, I spoke with energy. "Okay, let's get going. Sophie, Daniel, don't forget what I told you. Grandpa and I will go in first. When I signal, both of you shout, 'Surprise, Mom,' understand?" "Don't worry, Dad," Daniel answered. "And stay outside until I give the word," I reminded them. "We understand, Dad." "No problem," the kids reassured me. "All right, let's go." We climbed the stairs and paused outside room 201. I inserted the key card and eased the door open. Thomas and I stepped inside first, with the kids following. However, they didn't wait for my cue. Almost immediately, they burst out, "Surprise, Mom! We're here!" But what we found was Melanie in bed with Rhodes. Our sudden appearance caught them completely off guard. Rhodes scrambled off the bed, snatched his pants from the floor, threw them on in a rush, grabbed the rest of his things, and bolted from the room. He wasted no time getting out. Melanie, meanwhile, leapt up, desperately trying to pull on her clothes. "No, this isn't real. How did you all get in here?" she cried out in disbelief. "Look, Mommy's naked," Sophie blurted, squeezing between Thomas and me for a better look. I snapped my fingers, and the process server entered. "Are you Melanie Jarrett?" he asked the only woman in the room who wasn't dressed. "She's my mom," Sophie chimed in, trying to help. The process server handed Melanie a sealed envelope. "You've been served," he declared, snapping a quick photo of her clutching the envelope while she tried to cover herself. Just as quickly, he was gone. "Kids, let's give your mother a moment to get dressed," I said. We left Melanie sobbing on the floor, clearly aware of what the envelope contained. In the corridor, we met up with Benjamin and his kids. "Your turn, Benjamin," I said quietly. Things hadn't gone any better in Hannah's room. Spencer had reacted violently. When Spencer was caught, he lashed out, even hitting Thomas across the face. That was all the provocation Benjamin needed to jump in and punch Spencer. Meanwhile, Hannah surprisingly came to her father's defense, scratching Spencer on the face, one small but important show of support for him. I entered just then, dragged Spencer into the bathroom and tossed his clothes in after him. "Get dressed and leave," I said coldly. Thomas, Benjamin, and the kids exited the room. Hannah, apparently unfazed, followed them into the hallway, wrapped in nothing but a blanket. Benjamin gave her a stern glare. "Go put your clothes on," he told her. Looking chastised, Hannah turned and did as she was told. The process server, who had stepped out during the scuffle, now reappeared near the door. "James Jarrett?" he called. "That's me," I replied. He handed me an envelope. "You've been served." We all regrouped upstairs. Our initial plan had been to stay overnight and talk things through with our wives, but after what had transpired, I couldn't stand the thought of spending another night with Melanie. I packed our things and let the kids know we were leaving. Thomas told us he would stay behind. He wanted to have a conversation with his daughters. Benjamin and his children left with us, heading back to Minneapolis. 4 months later, after Melanie had begged for forgiveness countless times, the court finalized our uncontested divorce. Thomas struggled to get Melanie to agree to sign the paperwork. I kept the house, since it was mine before I'd married Melanie. I was also awarded primary custody of our kids, but I didn't ask Melanie for any child support. Thomas made sure she was taken care of financially. We divided the remaining assets, and that Christmas, Thomas surprised me with a generous gift to help me start fresh, telling me it would come out of Melanie's future inheritance. Benjamin's divorce unfolded in much the same way, except his home had to be divided, since both spouses owned it equally. In a twist of fate, not long after the divorce, Benjamin and Hannah rekindled their relationship. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up back together for good. As for Melanie and me, Reconciliation is impossible. Even though I believe she is genuinely remorseful and may still love me, I can't bring myself to forgive her. Her act of betrayal obliterated any affection I once held for her. What lingered was little more than the remnants of her disloyalty, scattered like cinders along the beaches of Belize. After that, loving her again became impossible. For the sake of our children, we manage a polite coexistence, but that's as far as I'm willing to go. One afternoon, as she waited for the kids to finish getting ready for their outing with her, she abruptly turned to me. "James, I need to know. How did you ever uncover what really happened in Belize?" "My secret is an appreciation for tan lines," I replied. She looked genuinely confused. "But I always wore a bikini. We never went to any nude beaches or anything like that." I nudged her memory. "Think about it, Melanie. When you used to clean the bathroom, working with all those harsh chemicals, what would you do first?" She thought for a moment. "I'd gather the cleaning supplies, slip on rubber gloves, and roll up my sleeves." I shook my head softly. "There's something else you always did before any of that. You always took off your rings, both the wedding band and the engagement ring, before you started cleaning." I paused, letting the silence draw out the truth. "But after Belize, your finger was bare. There wasn't even a tan line to show where your rings used to be. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watch this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. A soft spill of light from the hallway stretched across the polished wood floor as Evelyn Dorsey stood barefoot in the kitchen, her fingers trembling slightly as she arranged utensils beside two dinner plates. The low hum of the air conditioner did little to ease the storm churning in her chest. Inside the oven, a roast chicken sizzled beneath a glaze of citrus and thyme, Benjamin's favorite. On the counter, a chilled bottle of craft beer sat waiting, condensation trickling down its sides like unwilling tears. But tonight wasn't a celebration of love. This dinner was a quiet goodbye. She smoothed her hand down the sleek navy fabric of her dress, the one that hugged her curves and dipped just enough at the neckline to distract from the tension in the room. Her hair fell in gentle curls, lips glossed with a hint of pink, and the flicker of a single candle sent a blend of cinnamon and wood smoke into the air. On the outside, it looked like seduction. But beneath the surface, Evelyn's pulse beat with muted defiance. 10 years had passed in this marriage, 10 years of routines, of obligatory gestures. Benjamin, steady, emotionally articulate in theory, had turned into a background presence, more familiar than intimate. Evelyn felt like an extra in a life she no longer recognized as her own. "I want more," she murmured under her breath. What that meant, she couldn't always articulate, just more. Her closest confidant, Daphne Rivas, had been urging her toward this moment for months, her voice slick with rebellion during wine-drenched conversations and wicked grins. Daphne had broken her vows more times than Evelyn could count. "It's not cheating," she'd always claim. "It's reclaiming yourself. It's finally breathing." After a while, Evelyn stopped resisting the idea. Tonight wasn't meant to be a confrontation, not until Daphne's last message arrived. You either snap the chains or stay elegant and empty. Choose your cage. The front door creaked open. Then came the dull thud of Benjamin's boots hitting the rug by the entryway. He was home earlier than expected. "Hey," he called out, loosening his tie as he stepped into the kitchen. His features were etched with fatigue, the long day carved into his expression. "Smells incredible. Is this all for me, or are we hosting someone?" Evelyn offered him a measured smile. "Just for you." His gaze moved across the table, noting the details, the candlelight, the beer, the careful presentation. Then his eyes found her. The dress, the scent, the effort. "You okay?" he asked, a hesitant smile tugging at his lips. "You look kind of amazing." "Sit down," she said calmly. "We need to talk." He hesitated, then lowered himself into the chair like a man waiting for bad news. Taking the seat across from him, Evelyn felt her heart hammering in her chest. "I've been feeling empty," she began, not bothering with a preamble. "For a long time. I've tried everything: therapy, journaling, yoga." She drew in a slow breath. "But it hasn't helped. I still feel invisible. I want to feel wanted again. I want to feel alive, and I don't think I can do that inside this marriage." Benjamin paused mid-motion, his fork hanging in the air. "You're asking for an open marriage?" he said, voice flat. She shook her head slowly. "No, I'm not asking. I've made my choice." Her eyes were unwavering. "I'm going to be with other people. Just for a while. A few months. Then we'll reassess." Benjamin didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. And somehow, that felt worse. "There's already someone, isn't there?" he asked, eerily calm. She hesitated, then offered a quiet nod. "Yes, someone from work. But it's not emotional. It's about rediscovering myself." Benjamin carefully pushed his plate away and rose with slow precision. "Then I'll sleep in the guest room tonight," he said, his voice distant. Evelyn's throat tightened. "All right. And I'm not going to pretend this is normal. We're not okay." He stepped back, a chill in his eyes. "You made your move. Now I'll make mine." With that, he turned and walked away. Left at the table, Evelyn sat in the flickering candlelight, uncertain whether she'd seized control of her life or just broken something that couldn't be mended. Down the hall, behind a closed door, Benjamin remained silent. No cries. No slammed doors. Just a quiet, knowing smile, because Evelyn had no idea what came next. The following morning, adrenaline still coursed through Evelyn like a tidal current. The night had ended wrapped in the arms of Zane Hollis, the daring, dangerously charming consultant from her office. His scent still clung to the sheets, heavy with temptation and consequence. She rolled over in the vast king-sized bed, tangled in blankets and uncertainty. It was the first night in years she hadn't slept alone, but Benjamin had remained silent. Barefoot, she padded into the kitchen, her silk robe loose at the waist. The guest room door remained shut. The kitchen was untouched. No breakfast, no sound, no sign of life. Just the cold stillness of a man who had either gone numb or was strategizing. By noon, her phone rang. Daphne's voice sparkled through the speaker. "All right, honey," she said. "Tell me everything." Had Zane slipped out before the sun crested the horizon, or had he lingered long enough to cook eggs in nothing but his briefs? Evelyn let out a brittle laugh. He was already gone before she had fully come to. No breakfast, no tenderness. Daphne gave a sly grin. Even better. Detached means safer, and let's be real, Benjamin isn't in the dark. He knows the score. Evelyn bit down lightly on her lip. He hasn't said a single thing. Of course not. The quiet ones always pack the most danger, but you're not out to wound him, babe. You're just chasing something that feels real. That afternoon, while Evelyn was knee-deep in invoices, Zane appeared beside her desk. He leaned in with the ease of someone who'd known her body, smelling like cedarwood and dominance, flashing a smile that hinted at promises he'd never keep. "You looked incredible last night," he whispered. "Is your husband always that quiet?" Evelyn's stomach nodded. "He's just working through things." "Working through, huh?" Zane chuckled. "While he's busy doing that, maybe I swing by again later." She hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." That night unraveled into sheets twisted in heat, and laughter gasped between kisses, their limbs entangled, their mouths stained with wine and lies. And somewhere in the blur of skin and deceit, Evelyn convinced herself she was healing, becoming someone different. A few doors down, Benjamin sat still at the edge of the guest bed, noise-canceling headphones in place, eyes fixed on his laptop screen. Tiny cameras blinked throughout the house, one in the hallway, another tucked near the living room ceiling, one barely noticeable at the bed's headboard. He was watching, listening, storing every breath, every moan Zane drew from Evelyn. Benjamin cataloged it all, marked with timestamps, and neatly stored under a folder titled Consent. For the next week, Evelyn lived two lives, mimosas and sunny smiles with Daphne by day, secretive nights tangled in Zane's arms, lies passed through cubicles, staged phone calls to her mother, cheerful voices speaking of a picture-perfect life. She even dusted off an old journal, scribbling out dreams of launching a boutique marketing firm, maybe relocating to Austin. Reinvention loomed just beyond the end of her marriage with Benjamin. But Benjamin wasn't idle. At work, he cashed in an old favor from Caleb Rowan, a cybersecurity consultant he'd once helped through a messy legal entanglement. In return, Caleb handed over full access to Evelyn's synced cloud, her notes, her documents, her messages, every last chat from her professional account. 1 week later, the office buzzed with scandal. Zane Hollis was engaged to an art curator from Seattle. Evelyn was blindsided. Benjamin wasn't. He had already sent the anonymous tip, a burner email. Subject, thought you should know. Body, check the cloud. It's all there. And more is coming. B. She opened the file. Photos of Zane and his fiancée, choosing rings, sharing meals with family, attending art exhibits. All within the past 2 weeks. Evelyn's fingers trembled. Then the video played. Footage of her and Zane in bed. Their bed, clear, close, and damning. Her voice rising in pleasure, echoing truths she couldn't take back. The panic came like a freight train. Her phone hit the floor. Her heart pounded. Slowly, her eyes turned toward the closed guest room door. Silence. No confrontation. No explosion. Just stillness. Benjamin wasn't speaking. He was too quiet. And in that void, something shifted in her. He wasn't devastated. He wasn't clinging. He was watching her unravel and documenting every heartbeat of the collapse. This wasn't heartbreak. It was strategy. She collapsed to the bathroom tiles, breath shallow, eyes wild. The shower ran overhead, but it couldn't drown out the storm tearing through her mind. She kept replaying it. Check the cloud. It's all there. And what's coming next? She hadn't noticed Benjamin leave that morning, but she knew he had. His boots were gone. The truck wasn't in the driveway. No farewell, no confrontation, just absence. And that silence? It was more terrifying than fury. That evening, Daphne shoved the front door open without knocking, heels hammering the floor like gunshots. "Evelyn!" she barked, slamming it behind her. My department got an unmarked envelope. Screenshots, email chains, message logs. Half of it's me and Leo. The rest is you and Zane. The entire office is talking. Everyone knows. Evelyn stood there, hollowed out and speechless. It's Benjamin. He's the one leaking it. Bit by bit. On purpose. Daphne's expression drained of color. "How much does he have?" Evelyn whispered. "Everything." Daphne sank onto the couch, her hands visibly shaking. Leo's wife showed up at my house, with her attorney, screaming, threatening lawsuits. Evelyn pressed her fingertips to her temple, trembling. Zane was taken, engaged. I hadn't the slightest idea. Daphne scoffed, exasperated. Of course he was. Men like that never carry warning labels. Her tone sharpened like a knife. They come gift-wrapped in charm. Her face hardened. Her words hit with precision. "This was supposed to be empowering," Evelyn said, jaw clenched. "Not career-ending. You said it would help my marriage." Daphne's answer landed like a blow. "You made the call. I didn't shove you into Zane's bed. Evelyn opened her mouth to argue, but her phone lit up. A new message. Unknown number. HR has been notified. An internal review is in progress. We advise seeking legal counsel. Her stomach lurched. They're coming for my job, she breathed. Daphne let out a dry, mirthless laugh. Welcome to the fallout. The following morning, as Evelyn entered the office lobby, eyes locked onto her like lasers. Murmurs drifted from workstation to workstation, as intangible as smoke in sunlight. Her login credentials? Revoked. Her employee badge? Useless. Before she could even approach her desk, 2 security guards intercepted her. No words were spoken as they escorted her outside. Standing on the front steps, her phone rang. Gabrielle Houston, her manager. I can't cover for you, Gabrielle said, voice tight. There's surveillance, Evelyn, video, audio, from inside your home. Multiple recordings, during work hours, on company property. The board is furious. Evelyn wept. She pleaded. She begged. None of it mattered. By the end of the week, both she and Daphne were suspended. Zane Hollis released a flawlessly crafted public statement, positioning himself as the misled victim, emotionally used. His fiancée walked out anyway. But Evelyn? She was left exposed. And Benjamin? He vanished. No dramatic exit, no confrontations, no final message, just silence and small strategic strikes. A leaked message here, a whispered rumor there. The quiet, meticulous unraveling only a man with a plan could execute. That weekend, she returned to her doorstep and found a manila envelope. Inside, divorce papers. Benjamin's signature marked the bottom. No alimony, no financial agreement. Just a clean clause. Infidelity documented, reputation damaged, emotional abandonment confirmed. Her lawyer didn't sugarcoat it. He's building a rock-solid case. He's got everything he needs. Evelyn collapsed inward, hollowed by the truth. And Benjamin? He thrived, back to his morning workouts, first in the office, always groomed, always calm. Co-workers noticed his serenity. Neighbors commented on his polite demeanor. Because vengeance doesn't shout. It doesn't throw fits. It strategizes. It waits. It was Benjamin Dorsey. And Evelyn, who once believed she was in control, had become just another cautionary tale. The courtroom smelled like stale coffee and damp paper. Evelyn sat stiffly at the defense table, drowning in a blazer Daphne had scrounged up from deep in her closet, one from before Evelyn's reinvention. Her attorney, Adrian Miles, leaned in with a voice thick with fatigue. He won't settle. He wants full control. Even the dog, Evelyn. Evelyn blinked. We never had a dog. He knows. He just wants you to grasp that, if you did, he could take it. Across the courtroom, Benjamin sat beside his lawyer, expression unreadable, posture relaxed. Not gloating, not furious, just finished. The judge, an austere woman with hair like steel wool and eyes like razors, tapped her pen against the desk. Based on the extensive evidence submitted by Mr. Dorsey's legal team, including dated surveillance, archived correspondence, and supporting witness accounts, this court finds sufficient cause to expedite this divorce. Evelyn felt something inside her shatter. No support, no shared property. Her name scrubbed from the lease, and worst of all, her humiliation, official, public, permanent. Outside, the daylight felt cruel. City noise buzzed around her like static. She stumbled down the courthouse steps. Daphne waited below, makeup smeared, hair thrown into a rushed bun. I got fired, she said, voice flat. Leo's suing me, says I destroyed his marriage. My landlord's kicking me out. His wife saw the video. Thinks we're running some underground escort business. Evelyn let out a jagged, bitter laugh. We thought we were chasing empowerment. Daphne stared at her, jaw clenched. No, we were just restless. And we forgot something important. The people we tried to run from, they know how to strike back. They sat together on a bench as the world passed them by. Eventually, Daphne spoke. "You know what Benjamin told Leo at the gym?" Evelyn shook her head. "What?" "He said, 'I didn't leave her. I just stepped aside.'" Evelyn's breath caught. "That's haunting." "Absolutely not," Daphne said. "That's appalling." Later that night, Evelyn wandered past the home that used to be hers, now owned by Benjamin. She paused across the street. The porch glowed warmly in the evening light, and laughter spilled through the open windows. A woman's laugh. A dinner party, maybe? Evelyn narrowed her gaze. There he was, Benjamin, looking relaxed and at ease. Standing near him, a woman leaned in. Hannah, something like that. She worked in HR at his firm. Elegant, self-assured, she moved like someone who'd never once questioned whether she belonged. Then Benjamin leaned in and kissed her on the cheek. It wasn't friendly. It was familiar, tender. Evelyn's knees weakened. He hadn't simply moved on. He'd rewritten the story completely. He'd laid their past to rest with grace and crafted a new narrative, one that flourished in her absence. She turned away, dizzy, her phone vibrating in her coat. Breaking. Corporate probe launched after former employee misconduct scandal. Her name, once more, blazed across headlines. Whispered in boardrooms she'd never enter again. She had become a warning, a story told in shame. And Benjamin? He never said a word. His silence was a thunderclap. 6 months later, the walls of Evelyn's apartment were as thin and lifeless as her routine. Her job, answering phones on a temp gig at a company that sold gag gifts and spare parts. Her social circle? Non-existent. Even Daphne had slipped away, her own legal troubles dragging her into disrepute. Evelyn's name still surfaced now and then, the wife caught on camera, branded in headlines and hashtags. Feminist fraud? Adulterous villain? Her life had become internet folklore, the downfall of Evelyn Dorsey. She'd stopped reading the comments long ago. The internet didn't forgive, and it never forgot. Night after night she sat in darkness, replaying choices that once felt like liberation. Now they rang hollow, madness in disguise, and without fail, she logged into her fake account, stalking Benjamin's curated life. He posted nothing. Hannah did. Pictures of laughter-filled brunches, cozy vacations, a fluffy puppy, a peaceful, ordered life. One that made it painfully clear Evelyn had been deleted like a typo. Until one evening, the buzzer sounded. Evelyn froze. No one ever came. She cracked the door open. Benjamin stood on the other side, still composed, still calm, but something unreadable lingered in his eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked. She stepped aside. He walked in, his eyes scanning the modest apartment. "It's simple," he noted. "I lost the condo after the indictment," she replied. He gave a short nod. "I heard." They sat, him at one end of the couch, her at the other. The silence between them was wide and heavy. Eventually, she broke it. "You didn't come just to see the wreckage." "No," he replied. "I came to give you something." He pulled a flash drive from his coat and placed it gently on the coffee table. "What is that?" "Everything I ever recorded. Video, audio, emails, screenshots. From the house, the office. It's all there." She stared at it. "Why would you give this to me?" "Because now it belongs to you. Delete it. Expose it. It's your decision. You still have one." She studied him. "You planned this?" He paused in the doorway. "No. I just stopped hiding. You're the one who buried the truth." He left. The door clicked softly behind him. Evelyn stood still. Then, hesitantly, she reached for the flash drive as if it might burn her fingers. That night, sleep didn't come, not from shame, but from a piercing clarity that settled in her chest. Benjamin hadn't just walked away. He'd handed her a mirror. And this time, she couldn't look away. The next morning, she sealed the flash drive in an envelope. Not for journalists, not for a court. She mailed it to herself. A keepsake of the woman she had been, and the one she could never afford to become again. 1 year later, Evelyn now stood behind the counter of a small-town bakery, far from the city where her name had once sparked scandal. Flour dusted her apron, her hair was pinned up, and her smile, this time, was genuine. A young woman leaned forward. "Wait, aren't you that person? From the video?" Evelyn met her gaze calmly. "I was." The woman hesitated. "You were really brave." Evelyn tilted her head slightly. "No, I was reckless." She handed over a box of pastries. "But I'm learning what bravery really looks like." Outside, she flipped the sign to closed and turned the lock. Some stories end in revenge, others in redemption. Hers ended in quiet, and a long, hard journey back to someone she could live with becoming. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.